Betty McCullough was last seen June 21st, 1941, in Silver Creek Falls, Oregon. Her date of birth is unknown, though she was 10 years old at the time of her disappearance, which, if she was still alive today, would make her 86 years old. She was a white female. Her height and weight at the time of her disappearance were both unknown, as well as her hair and eye color. It is unknown if she had any aliases or nicknames, but she was subject to sudden bouts of illness and was also unable to hear or speak. She was diagnosed as only having a few years to live, possibly up to her late teens. There were no dental, no fingerprint, or no DNA records available. She was last seen wearing a man's shirt and shoes, and it is unknown if she had any jewelry, and unknown if she had any additional personal items with her. Early morning on June 21st, 1941, Betty woke up, took a water bucket, and quickly slipped by her two sleeping sisters. She was going to get water from the water pump outside. She was never seen again. No sign of her, no clues, nothing left behind. Days following her disappearance, her father, other family members, neighbors, and police scoured the area, searching for signs of her. Nothing was ever found. It is feared she may have been picked up by a passing motorist. Unfortunately, the agency name, contact person, and phone number for this case are all unknown, so it is possible that this case will forever remain unsolved. Stella May Horrell was last seen August 22, 1943, in Phoenix, Maricopa County, Arizona. Her date of birth was September 20th, 1924, which, if she is still alive today, would make her 93 years old. She was 18 years old at the time of her disappearance and is white/native, female, 5'5", 125 pounds, black hair, brown eyes, and went by the names Mickey, Desi Pearl Elias, and Stella Wessler. She had no distinguishing marks or features, and there were no dental, no fingerprint, no DNA samples available. It is unknown what she was wearing, if she had any jewelry, or if she had any other additional personal items with her at the time of her disappearance. There is very limited information about her case. It is known that she left Phoenix, Arizona, to travel to California, and then was never seen nor heard from again. If you have any information about this case, you are asked to contact the Doe Network. Gertrude Vreeland Tompkins Silver's case is still considered endangered missing. She was last seen October 26, 1944, in Inglewood, Los Angeles County, California. Her date of birth is considered to be around the year 1912, and her age at the time of her disappearance was 32. She was a white female, and her height and weight at the time of her disappearance were both unknown. She had brown hair, brown eyes, and it is unknown if she went by any aliases or nicknames. It is also unknown if she had any distinguishing marks or features. There are also no dental, no fingerprint, nor DNA records available. It is unknown what she was wearing, if she had on any jewelry, or if she had any other additional personal items with her at the time. Gertrude was one of the 1,074 Women's Air Force service pilots in World War II, and the only WASP who disappeared without a trace. She had over 850 hours of flying time. 46 hours of those were in the P-51, and 17 of those were in the D model she was flying at the time of her disappearance. She was a bride of just 1 month when her warplane disappeared after takeoff from what is now Los Angeles International Airport. Because of a misplaced flight plan, Gertrude and her plane, the new P-51D Mustang, weren't even missed for 3 days. A search, including the scanning of Santa Monica Bay by military boat with new husband Henry Silver on board, failed to turn up any trace of the young pilot or the newly built single-seat pursuit plane she was to fly across the country for shipment overseas. Years have passed without any trace of the plane's wreckage in the deserts or mountains along the route to Tuscan, the first leg of her assigned journey. If you have any information regarding this case, you are asked to contact Pat Matcha or Ken Whittle Sherfy at 714-846-9213. That's 714-846-9213 or 916-446-0955. Once again, that's 916-446-0955. I wasn't going to talk about this one just because the Sodder Children have been talked about many, many times by many other different YouTubers, but I decided that any other light that can be brought to this case, even if I just repeat old information, is still worthwhile. So instead of just talking about one or two of them, I'm going to be talking about all five, just do them all together at the same time. All five of the Sodder children were last seen on December 24th, 1945, and if still alive today, Martha would be 84, Jenny would be 80, Betty would be 77, and Maurice would be 86, and Louis would be 82. And they were all last seen in Fayette County, West Virginia. On Christmas Eve in 1945, the Sodders and 9 of their 10 children settled in for the evening. Martha and 4 of her siblings, Betty, Jenny, Maurice, and Louis, pleaded to be allowed to stay up and play with their new toys. Mrs. Sodder relented after the children promised to take care of their chores before coming to bed. Shortly after midnight, Mrs. Sodder was awakened by the phone ringing. A female caller asked for a man whose name Mrs. Sodder did not recognize. The caller gave a weird laugh before hanging up. Dismissing the call as a prank, Mrs. Sodder went to return back to bed but noticed the lights were still on, the shades were not drawn, and the doors had not been locked. Believing the children forgot to do these things before going to bed, she went back to sleep and was awakened again by a noise on the roof. About a half hour later, smoke began pouring into the bedroom. She yelled for her husband and children. Once outside, Mr. Sodder noticed that Betty, Jenny, Louis, Martha Lee, and Maurice were nowhere to be found. He went to grab the ladder, which was kept near the house, to reach the windows of the room where the children slept. The ladder was missing. Less than 45 minutes after the fire started, the house was consumed. Firefighters and state police arrived later that morning and placed the cause of the fire on faulty wiring. State police later withdrew their statement. The fire chief and state fire marshal sifted through the ashes and told the Sodders they could not find any remains. The acting coroner implaned a jury of 6 local citizens who returned a verdict that the 5 children had died due to suffocation and flames. Within a few months, the Sodders became convinced that their children did not die in the fire. An investigation revealed that the telephone line had been cut shortly before or during the fire. A late-night bus driver reported seeing balls of fire being tossed upon the roof of the Sodder home. An operator of a motel located halfway between Fayetteville and Charleston reported seeing the children Christmas morning. A Charleston hotel owner reported seeing 4 of the children in the company of 4 Italian-speaking adults a week later. 3 months after the fire, the youngest child found a hard rubber object that was hollow with a twist-off cap. It was identified by Army authorities as a napalm bomb called Pineapple. It was later discovered that the fire had started on the roof. During the fire, a man was seen stealing a block and chain from the Sodders' garage. He admitted to cutting the electric line to the Sodder home. The ladder, which couldn't be found during the fire, was found down an embankment away from the house. A couple of years after the tragedy, Mr. Sodder saw a photo of school children in New York and was certain that Betty was one of the children in the photograph. He drove to Manhattan to see for himself, but was never allowed to see the child. Sightings of the children came in from all over the country. Every lead proved fruitless. In 1952, the Sodders purchased a billboard displaying photos of their missing children and offering a reward for their recovery of any of or all of the children. The publicity led rumors that the children had been sold to an orphanage or taken to Italy. The Sodders tried in vain to get their case reopened, even writing to the FBI. State police and local authorities would not reactivate the investigation without any evidence of a kidnapping or murder. The investigating fire marshals admitted years later that he did not search through the ashes as thoroughly as he would have liked. Mr. Sodder, initially believing his children had died, bulldozed the site and covered it with 4 or 5 feet of dirt, planting flowers in memory of the children. In 1949, Mr. Sodder decided to excavate the site in order to search for human remains. The Assistant Chief of Naval Ordnance in Charleston and a noted pathologist from Washington, D.C. were among those helping. 4 pieces of vertebrae and 2 small bones that could have come from a child's hand were located. The pathologist noted that he was amazed at the scarcity of bones recovered after the thorough search, claiming it was unusual that no skulls or pelvic bones were found in a fire that was quick burning and not so intense as to destroy cloth, flooring, and other debris found. Back in Washington, D.C., the pathologist determined the bones to be human, having come from a person 14 to 15 years of age. Due to the location where the bones were found within the floor plan of the house, Mr. Sodder did not believe the remains to be of his 14-year-old son, Maurice. Another analysis of the bones conducted years later by the Smithsonian Institute determined that the bones came from someone 16 to 22 years of age. It was also noted that the bones bore no evidence of having been subjected to fire. A letter would arrive on the detective's desk claiming that the bones had been removed from a nearby cemetery and planted at the scene. Many believe the children died that night in the fire, and the family was never able to accept the loss. Others believe the children were taken and are still alive somewhere, believing the fire killed their parents and siblings. Mr. Sodder died in 1969, and his wife 20 years later. The billboard no longer stands. The youngest of the Sodder children keeps her parents' quest alive to find out what really happened that night. If you have any information regarding the case, you are asked to contact the Fayetteville Police Department at 304-574-0255. That's 304-574-0255.